From First Alert 4, this is a breaking news alert.
We will fight for our Constitution. This is long from over. Thank you very much.
For the first time in history, a former president of the United States found guilty in criminal court. A New York jury finding Donald Trump guilty on all 34 counts of falsifying business records in his hush money trial. Donald Trump is now a convicted criminal, this case years in the making.
Around 4 o'clock this afternoon, a New York jury finding the former president guilty, as we mentioned, on all of those counts related to a payment that he made to keep an affair between him and an adult film star, Stormy Daniels, quiet. This
decision comes just 11 hours after deliberations started. After 6 weeks of trial and over 20 witnesses, our David Amilati is following the latest on that verdict. David?
Let's go back to the charges on this. The case revolves around falsifying business records to cover up an affair with adult entertainment star Stormy Daniels. Trump feared a leak of that would derail his 2016 campaign. We got our first reaction from the former president once he exited the courtroom just after the verdict was read to speak out against the result, calling it a disgrace and striking out against the judge. Now, in fact, his campaign is already seizing on the result of the trial as a way to fundraise in the midst of campaign season with less than 6 months to go until Election Day. Trump's official campaign website, you see it here on your screen now, showing this image claiming Trump is a political prisoner and asking for campaign donations. Trump has vowed to fight the verdict and to win.
This was a rigged, disgraceful trial. The real verdict is going to be November 5th by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA, and the whole thing, we didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man.
There are, of course, a lot of questions on where we go from here. What we do know is the president has said he will appeal that verdict, as we mentioned, and that President Trump will have to be back in court on July 11th for sentencing in this case.
All right, David, thank you for a look at that. A live look now at the White House. The president is not officially, this actually is the motorcade, it looks like, through Manhattan there. Traffic you can see packed up there in Manhattan.
But we are hearing from the White House. A spokesperson says that, quote, we respect the rule of the law and have no additional comment. President Biden is currently in Delaware with his family, and he has no public appearances on his schedule for the rest of the day. But again, yeah, this live look is from Manhattan. You just saw her. Caroline Hecker is in our newsroom tonight getting reaction from lawmakers in both Missouri and Illinois about this verdict. Caroline?
Good evening, Corey. We have been monitoring social media since that verdict came down as lawmakers are weighing in. Missouri's Republican senators were quick to respond. Josh Hawley tweeted this, saying, "This is an America under Democrat rule, prosecuting political opponents, whether it's pro-life Americans or a former president." Missouri's junior senator Eric Schmidt also took to Twitter in response, saying, "Soviet-style show trials have predictable results. What happened in New York today is no different. The American people will reject this unprecedented lawfare in November." Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker, a Democrat, released a statement saying, in part, "Justice has been served. After facing a jury of his peers, Donald Trump is exposed as the liar and fraud that he is. Trump evaded the law to deceive voters, and today the law caught up with him." Now, as we continue to keep an eye on social media, we have yet to hear anything publicly from several of our area's Democrats, including Missouri Representative Cori Bush and Illinois Senators Dick Durbin and Tammy Duckworth. In the newsroom, Caroline Hecker, First Alert 4.
Caroline, thank you. We want to bring in now Webster University Assistant Professor Grant Shospak. Grant, we talked yesterday about this case, talking about deliberations. We didn't know how long those were going to go. But the fact that former President Donald Trump has now been convicted on all 34 counts, I want to talk about that possible impact on the sentencing phase. Is the fact that he's been found guilty on all 34 counts going to impact that?
So it may impact his sentence. Of course, each count that he's been convicted of carries a maximum of 4 years imprisonment. The judge at the same time could grant him probation as well. So he could, and on top of that, any sentence he gets, the judge could run those sentences concurrent, served at the same time, or consecutive, meaning he would have to do the sentence on one count, then begin the sentence on the next count. So he faces a lot of time in prison.
And I just think that another thing to talk about here is the possible impact on the election. What impact, if any, will this have in November?
I think that remains to be seen. We spoke about this yesterday. Many people support him regardless. It may change the minds of some, but that just remains to be seen.
And of course, he can still run for president. This conviction does not prevent him from doing that.
That's correct. So a felony conviction doesn't prohibit somebody from running for president. The only qualifications: 35 years old, natural-born citizen, and lived in the United States for 14 years.
All right, Grant Schosbach, really appreciate your time. Thank you for your insight.
Thank you.
And our breaking coverage of this story will continue on FirstAlert4.com and on your First Alert 4 News app. We'll have much more extensive coverage, of course, also coming up tonight on the CBS Evening News. That starts here in less than 25 minutes right here on 4.